are what Mucciolini drew in on his manuscript. And you can see here he has slurs typically just by the beat groupings. In one case, isolating the eighth note from a series of shorter notes. But that the printed slurs are simply spaced evenly, equally sized, to show that here are some slurs, even hanging over the bar line. Farina's printer in Dresden, Guillemot Bergen, clearly had a number of technical difficulties. Besides slurs, Farina called for double stops in the piece, and obviously he didn't have chunks of type with two notes printed on them, so the second note was actually inked in by hand. You can see the gaps between the metal chunks of type in the staff lines, but one unbroken ledger line there ruled in, and you can see some wear on these notes, but none on these. It's clear that slurring was already a common practice in Italy and Germany. The organist Samuel Scheidt in 1624, 3 years before the Capriccio, used some slurs in his organ music and labeled them as imitatio violistica, imitation of the violin, or perhaps of the viol. And these slurs significantly were 16th notes connected with 4-note slurs, so by the beat. And like Farina, Scheidt published some explanations at the end of his work, and explained when notes are drawn together, as seen here, it is a special style, just as violinists, or perhaps viol players, who know how to play clearly and gently are wont to slur. He uses, by the way, the same German phrase there that Farina does describe as slurring, mit dem Bogen schleifen, to drag or grind with a bow. He goes on, this manner, which is not uncommon among master violisten, even of the German nation, gives a very charming and graceful effect on the organ. So I myself have fallen in love with it and let myself acquire the habit. So by his testimony, it was already well known in Germany. Even 4 years earlier, Francesco Rognoni in 1620 gives a very complete set of examples of how one might slur certain passages. In various rhythmic permutations. And these really can be our primary source in figuring out how to interpret Farina's slurs. Rognoni describes them very simply. He says, slurring means to take 2, 3, or more notes in a single bow. If there are 2 notes, then 2 in down bow and 2 in up bow. If there are 3, the same. If 4, then 4 down and 4 up. So this would seem to suggest he's slurring notes by the beat. If 8th notes, then 2 notes at a time. If 16th notes, then 4 at a time. One trend that can be extrapolated from these examples, though, is that most of the slurs end at the end of the beat. That is, say that this one, we have a dotted 8th note, so the slur starts within a beat, but it comes to the finishes. These two actually are 16th notes. We have dun, da-da-dun, da-da-dun. Actually, I picked the one exception to my rule. Where's a better example? Here we go. This one concludes right at a beat, so that the next note falls on the beat. In other words, there's not much syncopation. And absolutely none of these slurs cross a bar line. I put that down. Twice is this rule broken, with the syncopated bowing in the measure that ends the first line and ends the second. And also in this measure. So the conclusion for the Capriccio is that it's best to simply connect them by the beat. So, for example, this passage, would simply be But one more thing to notice about Rognoni's slurs is that in 1620, he's managed to achieve truly readable and useful slurs. Of course, his Italian printer obviously had a much greater stock of characters than Gemo Bergen in Dresden. He has several different lengths of curved slurs, and for the longer ones, he has some arcs at the beginning and end that he can fill in with a straight line. The printer